I want you to do something with me right now. Open Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, whatever it is you post on. Actually open it. Now scroll slowly. How many things did you see? And how many things did you actually register? I know what went into making it, and it still didn't stop me. That moment right there is the AI content problem in a single scroll. Or, as the intellectuals like to call it, AI slop. Cinema gave us our first AI apocalypse vision in 1927. We watched it with popcorn and an existential dread. A century later, the AI apocalypse is not here in the form of robots, thankfully. Sadly, it's attacking content. Everything looks competent, yet nothing feels necessary. And the person scrolling, who might be your next customer, has absolutely zero reason to stop. But it made the floor higher and ceiling invisible. Welcome back. This is episode 9, part 1, because I have a lot to say about this. In today's episode, we learn about what really is going on with Netflix and AI advertising, who the modern consumer really is, and why Pharma is the most intrusive case study for understanding all of it. Part 2 drops next week. That's where the filmmaking techniques live. And I tell you about a shoot that I did that completely changed how I think about brand storytelling. Stay for the end of this one. I'll tell you exactly why. There's a free filmmaking strategy sheet, the actual framework that I walk into the shoots with, waiting for you at the end of this episode. You just have to subscribe Beehive. Link is in the description. Let's get into it. Section 1, the AI anxiety nobody will just admit to. Let's start with the anxiety, because we need to name it before we can move past it. AI design anxiety is real, you guys. It sits in the chest when you open a prompt tool and realize it can do in 2 minutes what would take you 4 days. It whispers at you when a client asks, just a second,
can't we just use AI for this?
As if the 4 years that you spent developing your eye are equivalent to a subscription fee. Before anyone comments, just dab. I know, I agree. I use AI regularly. In fact, this episode was possible partly because AI helped me research in 2 days what would have taken me 5. But here's the thing that actually keeps me up. The barrier to creating content is basically zero, and everybody is walking through that door. Remember when production was hard? When you needed equipment, skill, time, money? Those constraints for doing the actual creative work. You don't have the location, what do? You innovate. You could make everything possible, so you chose what mattered the most. Craft came from limitation, and limitation invented creativity. Now the floodgates are open, and we are drowning in content that is optimized, perfect, formatted correctly, and completely and utterly forgettable. Fine. Everything is fine. The color grade is fine, the copy is fine, the hooks are fine, CTAs are fine. Fine is the new bad. Because fine doesn't make you feel anything. And if they don't feel anything, they don't stop. And if they don't stop, you don't exist. It's all beige. The keynote circuit won't tell you this plainly because the keynote circuit is sponsored by the tools which created this very problem. So I'll say it, we're officially in a crisis of taste, and only way out is through. Section 2, Netflix, ads, and the question that nobody's asking. Netflix, the platform responsible for our doom scrolling and decision fatigue, also just handed us the most expensive case study in the history of brand compromise. Netflix bent over for advertising. There, I said it. They built their entire identity on one promise: no ads. That was their moat. That was the very thing that justified their subscription prices and differentiated them from every other screen in the living room. And now the same $8 comes as an ad-supported tier, AI personalized placements, selling your viewing data back to the brands in such a way that would make Reed Hastings write a very agitated memo. I understand the economics. Subscriber growth plateaued, new revenue line needed, password crackdowns can only go so far, business decisions, fine. But here is the question that nobody's asking. If you can serve the perfect ad to the perfect person at the perfect moment, but the ad itself is forgettable, what did you buy? Netflix's AI can tell you when you're 20 minutes into something super emotional, heartbreaking, defenses down, and it can serve you an ad at that moment of peak receptivity. Genuinely impressive technology, but receptivity is not same as resonance. This is the difference between a good ad and an ad that is merely understood. An ad that is merely understood delivers the message. CTAs are perfect, logo lands, boxes are ticked. A good ad has a point of view, a visual language that earns the moment it occupies. It respects the intelligence of the viewer. It doesn't feel like it crawled from a different universe and interrupted something better. Yes, Netflix can sell placements, AI can optimize targeting, but no algorithm on earth can give your ad a taste. That still in 2026 is a human job. Section 3, the modern consumer and who are they actually? Let me define who is on the other side of the Netflix screen, because now most of the brands are marketing to an audience that doesn't even exist. The consumers of 15 years ago wanted to be impressed by information. Credentials, clinical terms, charts going up. 9 out of 10 dentists kind of an authority. At that time, authority was the main currency. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on what side of the brief you're sitting on right now, that consumer is gone. The modern consumer has grown up with a smartphone, a Reddit account, and lived an experience of watching institutions fail repeatedly. They have a built-in detector for anything that smells like performances. Or in less polite terms, they know when they are being lied to. They have watched wellness brands get exposed for pseudoscience, pharmaceutical companies getting sued, influencers quietly deleting posts because the brand deal didn't get through or something. They watch the collapse of authority in real time in their feed between breakfast and lunch. What they trust is specificity. People over personas. Stories over statements. A Reddit thread over a press release. A creator's honest review over a brand copy. They want to feel something before they believe in it. That is a complete inversion of how legacy brands such as health and pharma were built. The old model, inform and then trust is built.
Tylenol is the #1 doctor-recommended brand of pain.
The new model, feel, and then information confirms what you already believe in. And here's the layer that I feel is underappreciated. The modern consumer doesn't see itself as a passive recipient to your message. They see themselves as an active participant in a cultural conversation. They don't want to be marketed to. They want to be invited into something. The brands that win now arrive early into a cultural conversation before the product, before the ask, and earn the right to be heard first. I call this unexpected but necessary placement strategy. We'll go deeper into this later. Section 4, Pharma, the worst petri dish and the best lesson. But first, let's switch spectrums from entertainment to survival. Pharma is the best petri dish for this conversation. Yes, you heard that right. I used petri dish for a pharma episode. I know what I did. Now, pharma is an industry that has most to say to people. Genuinely life-changing things, and yet has been historically catastrophic into saying any of those in a way that lands humanly. The bad example, clinical by default. You know this ad, white coat, doctor with a clipboard, authoritative voiceover, and then a disclaimer which is rattled at the speed of an auctioneer who's very late for something. May cause drowsiness, nausea, and an overwhelming desire to switch channels. Yes, I'm looking at you, Sensodyne, your entire category. Clinical by default thinking. The brief says communicate authority and trust. The creative translates this as white palette, lab imagery, doctor figure, list of ingredients that the consumer cannot even pronounce. When you look exactly like every other brand in your category, you don't just inherit their visual language, you also inherit their reputation, which also includes, unfortunately, all the parts that have eroded the trust. When your brand starts looking like the category, it also carries the category's baggage, every piece of it. Let's talk about the good example and what earned trust actually looks like. Think about what Hims or Hers built, or Calm, or Ro. These are the companies that are selling pharmaceutical and health products. None of them look like a pharmaceutical company. Hims and Hers sells medication for erectile dysfunction, hair loss, mental health, conditions historically spoken about in hushed clinical shame adjacent tones, and they built a brand that looks nothing like a pharmaceutical company. Instead, it looks like a lifestyle brand. Warm photography, dry, confident copy, ads that talk about erectile dysfunction in a way a close, unimpressed friend would, plainly, without ceremony, without any judgments, and in a way that you don't feel bad about using it. They understood something that most pharma brands still haven't. The stigma around the condition is the barrier to treatment itself. If you can make someone feel normal, not brave, not special, just normal, they're more likely to seek help. Here, marketing is doing the actual medical work. The difference between these two brands is not budget, it's not product, it's the belief about who the consumer is. One thinks they are a patient who needs managing, the other thinks that they are people who deserve honesty. One is growing, the other one is still running the same ad from 2009 and wondering why the numbers are flat. So that's the why. The AI design anxiety, the Netflix problem, the consumer shift, the pharma divide, all of it pointing at the same thing. Taste is the ultimate mode. And right now, not a lot of brands are building on it. In part 2, which is coming soon, I'm going to get personal. I worked on a pharma shoot, a Vicks advertisement, which we shot in India in the second COVID lockdown. The client said that no pharma client has said to me, they said, we do not want a clinical film. We want a story. And I'm going to tell you exactly what we did and the 5 filmmaking principles behind it. The principles that you can take in any content that you shoot. Doesn't matter what size, what budget, but the content that creates an emotional resonance which any automated content cannot copy. Plus the free filmmaking strategy sheet, which is waiting for you on Beehive if you subscribe. Link is in the description. I'll see you in part 2.